Now, it's no doubt that when you hear the name Yoru, there will probably be two things popping up in your head. The Yoru gods who slay with him, or this. But after months and months of sitting and waiting, recently Riot Games decided to hear our prayers and give the well-deserved rework to our man Yoru, finally fixing him for good and even shifting the meta a bit. But today, we're going to be looking back on how this one dude went from Valorant's worst agent to Valorant's most deceptive juggernaut. Yoru was released around January of last year when Episode 2 Act 1 rolled around, and people were hyped out of their minds to see an agent with a teleport ability be added to the game. But sadly, the hype didn't last, as when people actually started to use the agent, it was like a kid's vision of art being executed poorly.
Yeah, Yoru was like really bad before the buffs. Lowest pick rate in the game, lowest win rate in the game. I think he still does have the lowest win rate, but I'm not sure. I think it was like less than 1% or like around 1% in Immortal Plus. And then anything below that, I think it was even like only like 2 to 3% maybe. It doesn't really happen much anymore, but I remember playing Yoru before the buffs and instantly, people would just think you're trolling automatically just for playing him. I remember they would flame you, they would report you, mute you in game, dodge your lobbies. Sometimes people would just like think you're trying to get them to dodge a certain map because you picked Yoru, and then they would also make a troll pick, and then you would just get into a game with like a terrible team comp, and then everybody's mental is off starting the match, and it was bad.
As Rob said, Yoru wasn't really a fan favorite back then, mainly because of his kit, so let's go over why. Yoru had 4 abilities, each not really serving a purpose for both team and solo play. First, there were his footsteps, which were probably meant to cause a distraction or maybe bait out enemies in Riot's eyes. But to most people, they were just useless, obvious 200 credit each footsteps. Next, we have his blind side, aka his flash, which actually stayed the same ever since he got added to the game. And then we have his gate crash, which was super slow and kind of useless, unless paired up with a flash, aka a flash TP. And we finally have his ultimate, Dimensional Drift, which was an 8-second ultimate that was meant for getting behind the enemy quickly. Only problem was that the vision wasn't really that far and enemies would be able to see you if you got up close to them. And boy oh boy, people weren't satisfied about the powers that this anime protagonist had.
His abilities were just like made to be loud, or at least his footsteps were, and it just didn't really make any sense. And it felt like no matter what you did, his kit would always punish you for whatever playstyle you chose. His TP used to be like really loud. People would just, you could hear it, like, I'm exaggerating, but it felt like you could hear it across the map, and people would follow it and camp it. You know, at the time he didn't have a clone, so like your TP was like the main way that you could create space as a duelist for your team. Whenever they could, but if they just knew where your TP was at all times, like you just couldn't do anything. They would, if they shot it or if they camped you, it was pointless. And so you end up just like having this kind of like useless agent that, you know, compared to like Jett with her smoke and dash, or like Raze with her double satchel, where you could like force space for your team, compared to Yoru, where if your TP got caught, then you just really couldn't do anything.
Yoru was undeniably bad, especially since his role was meant to be a duelist. But the worst part about this was how loud his abilities were. Yoru was obviously meant to be a stealth character. I mean, his codename in the files was literally stealth. I'd say in my opinion that, although he's a really cool character, it was probably the execution that really messed him up badly. I mean, the footsteps don't really fit in a game like Valorant, because Valorant is a game all about sound and visual awareness. And with the footsteps, all it takes is common sense. Like, imagine you hear footsteps running towards you at the start of a round as soon as the barriers drop. Like, there's no way a per se high elo player would just be running straight into a site. A few months later, a few creators started popping up, showing their insane skills with the agent, showing things that even pros never knew existed. The main people who were contributing to this were Red, Ziptie, Esoteric, T, etc. And it seemed like their sole mission wasn't just to show how good they were with the agent, but to show Riot what they needed to fix and improve on Yoru, as there were a lot of weird but effective strats you could use with Yoru, including the shorty ult or the fake teleport lineups.
Yeah, Yoru does have a kind of like a meme-ish playstyle, I guess you could say. I think in turn though, that kind of also makes him like the most entertaining agent to watch. I say this on stream a lot, but he's such a dynamic character, and I feel like every Yoru main kind of has like their own playstyle. You know, some people like to play more tactical and kind of like use his kit to assist their really good aim. Some people focus on making like really good jukes and outplays with his deception, with the deception in his kit. Some people like to play him really aggressive with like his clone and flash TPs. And I just feel like no other agent in the game has this much depth to it. And because of this, it feels like there's always some like new Yoru strat. It feels like once a week somebody comes up with something new to do with Yoru. Like whether it's an animation cancel or the shorty ult strat at the time, rest in peace, I miss you so much, or like a new one-way flash or something. And it feels like the character just always brings something new to the table.
Now, after Riot realized about the mess that they made with Yoru, they ultimately decided that they should probably give Yoru the legacy that he deserved in the first place. So what did they do? They announced his new upcoming rework in December of last year. So what happened with that, you may ask? Well, the rework finally came in March of this year. And if I'm being honest, people were losing their minds because the changes that they made to Yoru were crazy. Yoru could now spawn a fake clone that when you hit it, would flash you for a full whopping 3 seconds. His TP became a lot faster and gained the ability to now be faked. His flash didn't really change as much as I said earlier, and finally, his ult could now be used with his abilities, and you're no longer short-sighted nor seen when up close, which made so many people happy that Yoru could finally be who he was meant to be. Not a stealthy character though, but rather Valorant's sweat-inducing meme.
I think a big part of what saved Yoru was it's got to be his clone. Has to be. The fake TP is great, but the clone just provides like so much value for your team and taking space that he just didn't have in his kit before, like at all. Everything feels good. I'm really happy with, you know, the rework and how everything's changed so far. I feel like Yoru is kind of like this big brain agent that you see like a lot of outplays with that you just can't find on any other agent in the game. And you know, they added like a couple layers of deception to his kit with like the fake TP and his clone, and the clips and the outplays are just better than ever before.
Now, I think we should give credit where it's due, because I personally think we couldn't have saved Yoru if it weren't for all the talk by the community, especially all the content made by the Yoru mains out there, and maybe the people that complained about Yoru as well. But at the end of the day, he's still the same Yoru that we don't have to hate anymore.